Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sonal Patel. This is the Paint the Medical Picture podcast. This is episode 5 in season 17. I am so happy to welcome my fantastic guest today, Keisha Wilson. I hope those of you in my audience who have been here for a few years, she is back again. Hi, Keisha.
Hi, Sonal. So happy to be back.
I'm
Season
so glad to
17
have you.
already. I was like, oh, 17 an episode. I am happy to be a guest and returning.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. So, a lot has happened, obviously, in our lives, in the healthcare industry since you came on the podcast. I think it was about a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
where you shared your journey with my audience as well as your expertise. But that was a while ago, right? So I wanted to bring you back because the industry has changed so much. We're already in a brand new crazy year, 2026. You and I specifically went through craziness during telehealth in the fall, all the roller coaster that was happening, the government shut down,
Exactly.
everything. So, I wanted to bring you back so we can just go over all of those types of changes. And more importantly, what's been going on with you? Because I know you have some things to share, and I'll let you share whatever you would like.
Awesome. Thank you. I can't believe, a year and a half. So much has changed. I mean, we're still smiling. So that means that we kind of made it, or we didn't drop off that telehealth cliff that had us dangling. I would tell those super thank you to everyone that attended the workshop that Sonal and I did together. We had a telehealth workshop. It was our first, we've collaborated on different speaking engagements together, but our first actual coming together and having an event together. And it was so great about telehealth. I think no one fell off of that cliff. And it was right around the same time as the government shut down too, as well, or right after. So
Right after. Yeah.
we had a lot of high stress, but that was one of the amazing highlights in 2025. I think so much has happened since then. I don't remember if we spoke after the home explosion, before the home explosion. Either way, there was a lot of life-changing events. I've started to talk about it a little bit more now that there was a huge impact. And I think Sonal encouraged me to talk about it too, because we show up in a space where we're always smiling and we show up for our clients and our students. And a lot of people don't know what's necessarily going on with us. So I think it was August, 29, 2024, when we lost our home due to a suspected gas leak and explosion in the neighbor's house. And if anyone knows New York City, it's a beautiful place, but depending where you live, the houses are connected. So our house was connected on both sides, and the walls opened up like an earthquake, like it just split apart. And this is brick homes built in 1940. But we're super happy, my mom and I, thankful that we were able to make it out and survive. They did have to demolish the home with everything in it. So that was a lot. My friends, Sonal and others knew, but I didn't tell the world. I still showed up because I didn't want anyone to kind of feel bad and let it impact anything. But I also realized we do need to talk about things because sometimes we need a reset or we have to hit pause for a second. And I continued showing up for my clients. I think I just had some clients that I signed 2 weeks before. So I had the news footage camera caught me on the sidewalk in a meeting with my laptop, mind you, and firemen and gas people are behind me, like going in and out, trying to assess what happened. But that was okay. And then I remember I taught a class the next day, and the faculty manager for APC was like, "We can get a sub for your class." And I was like, "Nope, I want to be there," because I was their last of 16 weeks. I said, "I want to be the one to wish them well on their exam." And so I taught. The students didn't know, but I remember having to shut off the camera at one point because the tears just started to come out my eyes. It was like, I just couldn't help it. But besides that, You learn a lot. You learn that life is short, that tomorrow is never promised. So we really have to appreciate every day. And material things are great, but they are not here forever either. And so you can't really get attached to them as we should. So that was one part. But now to some fun stuff. So, life is changing. We're figuring out life after that. KW Advanced Consulting continues to do amazing things. The business continues to grow. I have been MWBE certified, I think, for some time. So, minority women owned business enterprise. So, that's city and state in New York. I also became SBA, so Small Business Association certified. I started teaching at my alma mater, New York City College of Technology. I started teaching a patient care navigation course. And that curriculum I actually built from scratch. They knew the director is amazing, and she knew once I started the business and what I did. And, she had an idea and she was like, "What could you do with it?" I was like, "Say less."
Right.
I created this program from scratch and it is amazing. It's about to start again in a few weeks. So it goes for like 6 weeks every semester. And I teach all day long to some students who know nothing about healthcare. And I always love when to hear them in the beginning and then to hear them at the end of what they've learned. And that just truly makes my heart smile because I love teaching. And I still continue to teach the CRC and the CPMA under KW Advanced Consultant. So continue to be a licensed education provider through AAPC. So I'm one of their PMCC license holders. What else? So I continue to speak at conferences. Some of you may have seen me nationally and regionally, webinars, and what else? The most important, recently, I became an author. So I always written coding articles. I wrote my book about my journey of taking care of my mom as a caregiver. She went through post-concussion syndrome from an accident as a nurse and then stage 4 cancer. And it has been a journey as a caregiver. And those who have purchased the book, it came out February 10th. And I just want to thank everyone in advance who has supported and purchased, but all those as well as Sonal, who was a listening ear when I was going, through the caregiver. I still go through it, but actually just kind of when she was going through treatment, again, something else a lot of people didn't know, but learning to share that space. So it took some years to write. Some people were like, I think when I told Sonal, she was like, "But when did you have time to do that?" And it was losing. I had always started to keep notes with my mom and everything she went through. There was always notes in my phone, and I started to kind of jot it down and not even know that it was going to turn into a book. And of course, I'm a woman of faith. So God is like, "Listen, you need to write this thing." And I was like going back and forth because you're being transparent and letting people see you from a light that they haven't seen you before. And after we lost the house, I had like nothing but time. I wasn't really leaving the house because you kind of go through trauma with leaving. So I wrote, and the time I couldn't sleep, I'll be up writing. And anyone could tell you I am a determined person. So once I have it on my list of things to do, I am going to do it. And I realized I really had a story to tell because I continued to run into caregivers. So I knew that I had to do this to bring light and awareness to a few of the things that we're going to talk about in a bit. So that was exciting. And then I think AAPC, yes, they did. They did cover me on January last month.
The January issue. Yep. You were featured.
As a member of the month, where I talked about the business and how I got started in healthcare and how did I end up here pivoting, which I'm sure we're going to talk about some more. And what does that look like? Because I find in healthcare sometimes a lot of people feel stuck and they're not sure what to do. So what do you do when you hit that wall?
Wow, Keisha. So, yeah, I mean, you have touched on everything in the recent years, right? Since you last set foot in the studio here.
Yes.
So, as I was listening to you attentively, as is my audience, hopefully, um, you know, your recent stories are remarkable examples of your strength, your faith, your positivity, encouragement, the fire, the explosion. That was the starting point of all of this, right? And when you and I were talking about that years ago, of course, I kept it to myself, right? That's not something for me to share, right? But I always encouraged you, when the time is right, when you're ready, you can always share to those people that you trust, right? Because it probably feels good to share some of that tragedy,
Yeah.
right? Because it really will help other people who are hearing you, on, how much strength you had to face all of those obstacles, right? Those months and months that came afterward, the rebuilding. How do you do that, right? All of those hoops that you had to jump through to secure, some other place to live, to get to safety, the belongings, right? All of those things you are thinking about. So all of that was incredible, just incredible. And the fact that you still went to work the next day, like you promised your students that you would be there, and you were there, right?
Yeah.
Despite all those tears, you were
Mm-hmm.
like, I made a commitment and I'm just going to go. So,
Yeah.
that shows a lot of your tenacity and commitment to, what you said you would do. So that shows a lot of character as well, right? So all of these types of life events, in hindsight, when they happen to people, specifically you here, because you're my guest today, but when life events happen to people, at the time they can crumble, they can fall apart, they don't know what to do, right? They can just dissolve and not really know how to pick themselves up. But when you share your story and how people do pick themselves up, that is the inspiration. That's the like, oh my gosh, wow, how did she do that? That's incredible that she had the wherewithal to get up, figure it out, take care of her mother, do all of the things despite the tragedy, right? Like you still had to go to the appointments with your mom. You still had to do all of those things,
Of
right?
course. You're still showing up.
Yeah, you still show up. Exactly. You still show up. And that's so important.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you. I
yeah,
don't think we even think of, and even hearing you say that, sometimes I'm like, is it me? That's me that did all that? Because
you, yeah,
that whole thing, like it happened the same day I came back from HealthCon in PA, like 5 hours after.
right.
So some things that were in the trunk of my car, yeah, I still have because they were there. But I was like, I'm sure these firemen are, because they look in the footage to kind of see things, and they're probably like, this lady literally just rolled back in. Um, but I think I get that too from my mom. She's super strong and she's faced so much, and I think we faced it with her as well too. So you learn that resilience, and then I think my faith. Well, not I think I know my faith.
Yeah.
And God definitely helps as well too, even when your back is against the wall, because some people will have crumbled and lost their mind. If
Sure.
you see the house that you owned for 20 years, like
Right.
come down and all your belongings, but I knew I had to have. I knew there was a bigger purpose, and then I think around that time we had like the fires happened a few months after in California, and it was just different events all over. And you're like, a lot of people are dealing with these things, even with cancer. You sit in the waiting rooms, and all I see is patients. So many patients. Some of them by themselves, some of them with family members, and you're just like, you're just so thankful to be alive. And so I always say, if I can use that, as you said, once you start sharing your story, it will help others. So I think you have to deal with it first,
Yes.
and kind of heal. And
Yep.
even kind of talking about it does help and does heal. So I'm thankful, and
Yeah.
thank you for the encouragement to do that as well.
Absolutely. We're in the healthcare space, right? So, when we come across behavioral health specialties, for example, when we're auditing those records, right? When there is talk therapy that's involved or group therapy, counseling, right? All of that matters, right?
Mhm.
And people are kind of bottled up at first if they've endured some sort of trauma, some sort of, tragedy. When they're in those spaces, it's a good thing, right? Because eventually they will open up.
Yeah.
And so that was really spot on. You have to heal yourself before you can actually start talking about it, start sharing what
Mhm.
happened to you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah, that's a really valid point. So I do think that it was because of that explosion, that everything that's happened to you since, that you've talked about, all of that has helped along the way. You know what I mean? Like all of those lessons learned, you have carried forward,
Yes.
again and again and again,
A
in
100%.
everything that you do. Like it's not forgotten just because it happened in 2024. You carry it with you every single day. And the choices you make are probably impacted by that sense of life is short. There's no promise, there's no guarantee of tomorrow, there's no guarantee of continued success tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, right? Like we just never know what can happen, you
Yeah.
know.
We
So
really don't.
you really,
And you talked about the coping part, and I don't know if I ever mentioned it on the last podcast too. That my undergrad was in human services, so I went
yeah,
to school to be a social worker, and I
for
think I did mention it. And then I had gotten into this master's program for social work, and then halfway through, I'd been about face and went into coding. But you never kind of lose that foundation. And so I had to do interviews and listen to people, and you were practicing to be a social worker, so you have those skills. And sometimes we try to self cope in the
yeah,
beginning,
yeah,
but self coping doesn't do enough. You pray, you try to self cope, and then you just need to talk to professionals. I was already speaking to someone because of the diagnosis my mom went through, and so the support group, I was in a group support group, and I talk about it in the book, and then individual, because I was like, I need something more than the once a month group that we're getting with caregivers. Um, and so that helped too, where they kind of challenge you to step out, to
yeah,
try to get back out there and do
yeah,
different things. Because what people don't realize, and I wrote an article about it a few months ago, I think I wrote it around November, and I talk about rising from ashes, and I talk about the trauma that people go through, that have gone through life trauma, with losing the home, fires, floods, you name it.
yeah,
And I linked it to healthcare and linked it to what we do, because sometimes we don't realize, but there's still a lot of us
yeah.
on social media, not social, but LinkedIn and different places
And it's
where we
social media,
all
yeah,
show up, social media,
yeah,
that are going through things, but we just don't know. So then, how do we, when we interact with them, how are we approaching them? Because some people just want you to like get back to normal and be the same Keisha you
right,
were years
right.
ago.
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
there's you can kind of never really get back to that part, but you learn how to heal and move forward.
Exactly. No, and that's a really good point that you brought up, right? Yes, you did disclose that your original line of education and then work was in social services, right? And people that know you can tell,
Yeah.
because you are very compassionate. That has not gone away, right? That kindness, that giving nature isn't gone, right? So, you know, we definitely did want to talk about career transitions, career moves, and things like that on the podcast. And especially because folks like you and I, we
Mhm.
both have transitioned. We've come from somewhere else, and people that know us can see it. You can see it when you speak to us, like, oh, very, artsy person over here in this box, and a very kind, giving, compassionate person over here in this box. You know what I mean? Like, all of that impacts our transition to the medical coding, auditing, compliance, business of healthcare space, right? All of that translates very, very nicely, very, very easily. And I really think it's helped us in our careers to navigate how we speak and communicate effectively
Yes.
to practitioners.
Mhm.
Because that's not really talked about when you begin your path in this field. It's not
Yeah.
really like focused on communication skills, soft skills. I don't think they're soft skills. I think they're smart um,
Yeah.
you know,
People skills.
people like we have to get back to basics,
Yeah,
people. We
literally.
have to be able to speak to each other, be transparent.
Yeah.
All of that stuff goes a very, very long way. So when you mentioned social services and your past, that just brought me right back to, when folks come to us, because we are at mid-career,
Yeah.
right? We've been around the block. We've been around the block. Yes,
Yeah.
we look like we're 8 years old, 10 years old, but we are not.
I know.
We are
I can.
mid-career, and so we have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot to give back to those of us that are still coming up, or they don't know what to do, or how do they move up from their current position. So, do you have any advice for people in my audience who might be scratching their heads like, I love where I'm at, but I also want to strive ahead.
Yeah.
How do I do that in this particular organization that I'm at? I want to stay here. I'm happy at this place, but how do I go about, navigating um, the next opportunity? How do I do that? I get that question a lot,
Yeah.
a
I
lot.
do too. From current students, former students, just, messages I'll get on social media, asking those questions, or what certification should I get next, or what should I do? And I always say, well, I can't tell you what to do. I start to ask some of the questions like, what space are you in now? Where do you see yourself? I'm huge on vision boards. I was talking just to take a little step back a second too. I did another interview with a friend recently for her podcast too, and we went to high school together, and I went to junior high with her husband. So I've known them for a long time, but they know me in that space and not necessarily in the healthcare space. So
Mhm.
even her reading through my bio and realizing, wait a minute, all that I've done and I've accomplished. And then starting the business, even writing the book, she remembered I reached out to her because she wrote a book. And I reached out and I said, I'm looking to write this, any guidance? And she said, a lot of people have ideas. And so when I reached out to her and said, hey, I finished the book, I created a website. Oh, I did that. I forgot to mention that too. So there's a website and it's a resource for caregivers. So it's not just a book, it's more than a book. And I have twisted and pivoted what I do in healthcare to make it bigger than. And so when you were talking about the artsy side, and the social services side, yes. And I think that's what maybe sets us apart from others as well too, is the individual personalities and what we have done in the past that is included in our business, in our day to day.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's different too. So when people ask me, these are questions I ask them, well, where do you see yourself? The vision boards, I was intentional. December 31st, I was sitting in here. I
Mhm.
took so many trees, sorry trees. I printed out so many pictures. I prayed. I was like, where do we see ourselves? We have a lot of thoughts in our mind, but seeing them down on paper
Yeah.
or in front of us on a board. So I was clipping out and I was like, God, this is what I hope for myself in the next year, 2 years, if your will be, because I know tomorrow's never promised.
Right.
So one thing, where do you see yourself? Two, do you view it as a career or a job?
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be the difference too. Are you doing it just for money? Because any entrepreneur will tell you initially, when you transition from corporate into business, it's a change when it comes to just income. You're not getting that bi-weekly or weekly check anymore. And so are you passionate about it? Because when the checks don't come in or you have to stay up to 3, 4 in the morning on a project or to figure out a website, are you going to do that? One, what are your intentions, when it comes to yourself, even with certifications? Do you have a specialty that you're looking to do? So I think there's questions. I remember in, I think, my newsletter towards the end of 2025, before 2026, I asked some questions. I think I attached a PDF to ask questions about where do you see yourself? What are the goals that you have for yourself? Because you can't have, someone else can't have it for you.
Right.
You shouldn't compare yourself with anyone else's journey either, because everyone's path is different.
Mhm.
There's a million consultants, right? But
Mhm.
everyone's a little different right now with what
Right.
they do, what they're passionate about, what they specialize in.
Mhm.
And so that's a bit different as well too. Have you done the research? I can't. My middle name, I always say, depending on the day of week you talk to me, is either compliance, research, coding, something. But research is one of the biggest ones. And my friends will tell you, I can research before you bat an eye. And it's not just one resource, right? I'm checking more than one. So even when we're talking to coders looking to get different certifications, where did you check? Um, did you check more than one certification? Did you check the requirements or what's entailed in this course before you sign up? And so I learn now to give people homework and not just give them the answers. Tell me, where did you check? Um, you're inquiring about salary. Did you look? Because on Glassdoor and now they have to post salaries.
Right.
And so did you go and look at videos? To me, you have to check at least three places to say you really researched.
Mhm.
And then we can have a conversation because, we can guide you even on business. My friend who, when I initially started the business, and this was even before I did, and I think I talked about it before, we had a conversation and he was like, bet on yourself. It's like he saw certain things in me that I didn't even see at that point. And so I always remember that and I always reference that conversation, bet on yourself. I had to bet on myself. And when you bet on yourself, then others are willing to bet on you as well. But
Right.
I did the research. I read probably like 15 or more business books. I listened to YouTubes. I signed up on SCORE, on Small Business Association. Like I did it all. I signed up for classes just to know so I can be almost a subject matter expert in a field that I didn't know anything about. Because working in corporate and in being compliance is different from running your own business. There's so many avenues, and until you get to a certain point, you are the one doing a lot of things for yourself. So, do you have that drive?
Mhm.
Are you someone that finishes what you started? Or is it just lists, check off lists?
Right.
Um, that would be something I throw back. And I'm sure that's some of the questions that you ask people as well too,
Of
because
course.
that will
Of
determine
course.
everything.
Yeah. You've given people so much to think about, right? There is no, one fit solution
No.
to everyone who comes to us with these questions of what is my next career move, right? A really good consultant acts like a coach,
Mhm.
right? Those coaches that are all over YouTube and Instagram and whatever. We are those people too, but we're not all over those,
No, not yet.
right? Not
We
yet,
will be soon.
but soon. Yeah. But that's the best way to pull information out from the questioner, right?
Mhm.
Because so many times you're so stuck in your head, right? And you're confused, you're flustered, you don't know what to do, you don't know your next move, right? But when you talk to a consultant, when you talk to a coach
Yes.
who really listens to you and helps you pull that information out of yourself, just like you had that aha moment,
Mhm.
others can receive that too. There are many, many skills that people have that they've forgotten about, right? That they've pushed off to the side. But a really good consultant and coach can help you pluck that information back out to help
Correct.
you understand what your next move can be, where you can pivot to next. And that is why. right? It's because you found that golden gem that
Yes.
the questioner had tucked away that they forgot about, right?
Mhm.
But once you pull that information out, they can go back and hone that forgotten skill
Yeah.
or whatever it is, right? They can go back and hone it so then they can apply, tweak up their resume, beef it up, make it perfect for that level up job,
Yeah.
right? And then they can interview confidently, and land that, integral move that they were looking for. So
Yeah.
there's many ways for us to coach people to make them stay positive, and not feel so defeated. Because more often than not, I always get people who are struggling. Like,
Mhm.
what do I do? I'm panicked. How do I leave this cushy position? Cushy in their mind, whatever the income is, they're happy, they're satisfied, but they want something more, but they're scared, right? So, how to help them overcome that fear is by having those safe conversations, that I think people are hungry for. So, for those of us in the audience today, that's important. So, not
Yeah.
only is writing down on lists what you want to achieve, you've got to go much more than just check the box, check the box, check the box.
Exactly.
Like we talk about in evaluation and management codes, right? You got to go much more beyond checking the box. You've got to dig
Beyond
deep.
that.
You've got to dig deep and you've got to figure out why. Why
Mhm.
do you want to leave that
Exactly.
quote unquote cushy place? There's something that you're uncomfortable with, which is
Mhm.
wanting you to move. Like
Yeah.
you want to move on.
Mhm.
So you've got to address that. Like, why do you want to go? Write
Exactly.
that down, deal with it, right? And then figure out, how to get to those next positions.
Mhm.
But you gave the audience so much to think about, and it really is about introspection. Really, really is about introspection.
It
People
really
get
is.
comfortable with themselves
Yes.
and get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because sometimes you really do have to ask those
Yes.
deep
Uncomfortable question.
questions. Yeah, that might, make you sweat a little bit, but that's okay because you have to get those answers. Have to
Yes.
get those answers.
And I think so. So many things. You pointed out as well too, and then like all the thoughts are coming to my head. Those questions, and I think because when I went to school for the human services and social work, we had to do interviews. We had to ask questions, and mind you, the questions, the clients that we were had it was a teen homeless shelter. So you had people coming from Port Authority, all over the different states, and you're hearing all kind of stuff. Who were assaulted, different things. You kind of have to learn to keep a straight kind of face, but retain what they're telling you and interview those open-ended questions so you can be able to get back information. And so sometimes when I ask questions, my mom be like, "Who are you, the FBI agent?" But no, my questions are always to dig deeper and find out.
Right.
You know, we're gonna scratch the surface because but maybe you don't want to say it. Another thing I thought about too. So two references to the Bible, because I just read it every day. One, who do we seek counsel from? There's a verse in the Bible that says, "Who do we get guidance from? Who do you ask questions? Is it someone?" I don't want to say. They always say you want to have a different group of friends, especially when you're looking to excel. Because if you have the same friends who are everyone's just comfortable where they are, you may not excel anywhere. So you kind of have to look, and are you going through those same friends for guidance? Because they'll be like, "Wow, why do you need that certification? Why do you want to leave that job? Aren't you getting paid? Isn't your bills paid? Aren't you getting to go on vacation?" And that's the guidance that they may give you. The other one is another part of the Bible talks about God tells you, it's like, if you don't use your gifts, he's going to give it to someone else. And so even with writing the book, I feel like I heard that so loud, and it took me to that part. If you don't write this book, I'm going to give it to someone else to write. And I was like, no, I don't want to see someone else tell my story when I know God has given me this story and this testimony to tell about my mom. So these are a few things. Are you sitting on gifts? Right? Sonal already has her artsy gifts, and we connect on that level because she didn't realize that when I went to school, I majored in art too. My
Yeah.
mom got it from her.
Yeah.
Right. So it makes sense. And we use that in our day to day when it comes to the business. A lot of people like, who's your marketing person? Me. It's and it helped when we did our workshop together because we collaborated and on the colors and everything. It
Yep.
just worked.
Yep.
So, who are you going to ask questions to? And if you're coming to one of us to ask questions, be ready that we're going to turn the tables around and ask you questions. Where did you research? And as Sonal said, you want to leave, and if you want to leave, why? And for those that, because I had a lot of conversations recently too with others who feel stuck,
Mhm.
maybe got denied in some positions that they applied for
Yeah.
or other things, or they've been there a while and feel like, okay, I've reached this age where no one's going to hire me.
Mhm.
And I say that is absolutely incorrect.
Right. It's wrong.
It's our thoughts, right? We have to know our worth first, like bet on yourself. And sometimes we feel like, okay, yes, we're getting this check and I'm comfortable and we don't want to venture out anywhere. But sometimes you have to get uncomfortable.
That's right.
Entrepreneurship is very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. Very
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. That's right.
It is, there's a lot of work. People think I sit behind the computer all day. No, I map out offices and I drive around because not everyone, I remember my business mentor said, not everyone's decision maker sits behind a computer. So sometimes you have to go in person, them seeing you, look at your account. Can I make it to this conference? Because you never know what opportunity. So that telehealth conference I went to in California, almost like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, that opened up a door where now with the International Society, and we met Dr. Griffiths. She was
Amazing.
she was at our workshop,
Yeah.
and she's having an amazing, the society is having an amazing digitally driven women powered next week. Where
Fabulous.
women, like it's women all over the 5 continents and stuff that's going to be
Exciting.
speaking. But that opened a door
Yep.
in a space. And now, as of last year, they made me chair of this committee. I would have never, that wouldn't have happened if I didn't bet on myself and take a leap and go there. The business was another leap. Writing, even coding articles.
Mhm.
And so it was such an honor when I was featured and to know that they saw. There was, because you do the work just because you love it, but knowing that people actually see the hard work and the dedication and the integrity and and how you put out your work and present yourself, people are always watching. So you want to have the conversation with yourself. Am I staying because I am just okay with here? Because there's some people that are okay with being coders, and that's fine. Because I have friends who've been coders for years. I have some that was in management as coding managers and directors, and they're like, you know what, management is not for me. I'm going back to regular. I'd rather be a coder. And that's fine too, but they took a bet on themselves. So are you willing to bet on yourself to try, to apply for another job, to really sit and do the work, maybe calculate how much, update your resume instead of having a conversation with your friend and maybe gossiping on the phone. Ask them, say, I'm going for an interview. Can you test me? Throw out some questions and how am I responding? Really show up. And so these are some things that I would tell people, or I do tell people all the time. When they sign up for my course, they tell you, they don't just get an instructor.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah,
get
much more. That's right.
so much more because I'm going to encourage them. I said, even once you finish, it doesn't end there. Like I still check on my prior students. What did you do? Are you in the same position? You want to see people grow and excel to their potential because there's so many people walking around with potential, but fear holds them back.
That's right, Keisha. Wow.
Not
So
fraud, fear.
so many gems in what you just said. So many gems. Yeah, people have to push that fear away and just figure it out and figure out what they want because they really can go and get it, but they have to work for it.
Hmm. We don't
Yeah,
have to stay in 24 hours.
yeah,
We do. So sometimes when people say, how'd you do it? I have that list. And
Yeah,
I'm
if you want
so
to read, like what it took and how many books we had to read and how many sleepless nights and
yeah,
all of it. Like you really have to want,
yeah.
um, like we said many times already, you really have to want to get uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
um, to go out on your own. You
Exactly.
really have to get uncomfortable. But there are plenty of other options, if you don't want to be an independent
No.
entrepreneur, consultant. If you don't want that, there's definitely other avenues, right, to climb up in the organization. To, if you love education, we both love education, teaching. You
Yeah.
gave a phenomenal example of go out to your college, to your community colleges. You can be an instructor there. There are many, many programs across the US that do teach coding or billing or health and anatomy, physiology, whatever. If you love things like that, if you're passionate, you don't have to work at a hospital. You don't have to
No.
work at a doctor's office. You can go and be a educator if that again is one of your strengths that we
Exactly.
can pull out of you when we're coaching you and speaking with you. So there's many, many different ways, that people can pivot, can change, can go away from just their everyday coding job,
Yes.
or it's
So
another
much.
way to step up, to get away from the coding, but you've got the experience of the coding, so now why not go and teach about it, right? How do we do it? Because it's very difficult to teach how to code, how to use those CPT books or the CPT ebooks now, right? It's still a challenge to teach all of that material,
Yeah.
to someone who's brand new, right? So
And they can do it.
and they can do it, of course. We
When
did
I
it. I loved it. I loved my 5 hour and 40-minute examination that I took and passed. I was sweating. I was sweating. It was very, very
same, I had to take a
uncomfortable.
Tylenol.
It was very uncomfortable sitting in that auditorium in Houston, Texas. This was years ago. Um, and I passed. And that very same year, I don't know what possessed me,
To take another test.
I took the CPMA just a few
Ah,
months later, and I loved that even more.
yeah. Oh,
And I scored even higher. That was my favorite exam. I'm like, wow, this is
yeah.
amazing. I love the CPMA.
I'm
But
torn between the CPMA and CRC. Both of those were my favorite. But yeah, the 5 hour, I was like, you guys are
we
lucky.
were that old. We
4 hours.
are that old that we took it when it was 5 hours and 40 minutes. Now it's much, much less time,
4 hours.
4 hours on the dot. So we had much more strenuous, rigorous requirements to
Mhm.
take this exam. Oh my God, it was very stressful in that
It
auditorium.
was. I still think of it, but
I
I
still
know
think about it. I have flashbacks, PTSD from taking that
I
exam.
remember coming back and throwing those books in the corner. Like I didn't want to see you for some time
Yes.
because just the studying. I killed so many trees too. I was
Oh
both.
yeah, because I like to write. Yeah, but then I feel bad that I
I
have
know.
to. But then I do try to. I'm very old school. I like to just reuse the
Save the paper.
paper. I like to reuse the paper then again and again. Like I'm
Me
that
too.
old school. Yeah, I
Until
don't
this
like
every
the word.
corner, like you can see
Yes,
my
yes,
book.
every corner. Yes, every corner, every piece of the notebook. Let me see. Do I have any notebooks that are that written out? Oh my
It's
goodness.
so funny, and I use my computer too. But something about paper. Yes. Yep.
It's just
Exactly.
insane. I just love the paper. I love the writing.
Yeah, but
Um,
people could do it. And I thought about something else while you were talking. Sometimes you may hear no's. Like I had a student reach out this week, and she was saying how defeated she feels. Like after she got her certifications, I think she got her CPB, CPC, and I'm like, keep going.
keep
There's
going.
hundreds of people getting certified every day. You have to stand out. You
Yeah.
also have to ask yourself, are you looking to work 100% remote? Because that is something that a lot of new coders have in their head, and that is not necessarily the truth. The public health emergency and COVID-19 opened up a door for a lot of people to work more remote than we were before. But before that, we were hanging out in person unless there was a consulting company that would send computers. Some of them do, and you work remote, but a lot of in person. So, do you want to work in person, hybrid? sometimes if you're willing to work in person for a bit to get experience, that opens up even more opportunities. So and then the first time you hear no, and I think I talk about it in the article, I heard 3 no's when I was at looking to speak at HealthCon before I heard that yes. But I knew, I was like, once they give me the opportunity, I am going to make sure, you know? And so sometimes we hear the no's just so that we can push a little harder. You may not pass the test the first time, but how bad do you want it?
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. When you hear the word no, you have to keep going. You cannot feel defeated. Of course, you can vent to your girlfriends, to your boyfriends, whatever. Vent. That's very healthy, but never give up. I know I've said this again and again, embarrass myself every time, but I don't care. It's my story, right? When I transitioned into the field, I had no sciences in my background. I had liberal arts and humanities across the board, right?
That
So
was really mine too, and then I switched.
yeah, right. So, when I had to pivot, I was concerned. I'm like, but my little certificate with a 4.0 is not going to get me a job. And for the longest time, even as a grown woman transitioning to a second career completely, I had my blinders on, couldn't see that my CV, my beautiful CV, read like an art historian, read like some liberal arts woman trying to get a job at the medical center in Houston, Texas.
Mhm.
Wonderful city, hospitals galore, physicians' offices everywhere. And I applied to like a million jobs and got turned down, or like no one even responded. Like, why would they respond to a liberal arts resume, right? So I'm laughing now because I'm like, why would they talk to me, right? And there were no resume writing services back then.
Yeah.
It didn't exist.
Or
So nobody could like teach me, girl, you just have to change your resume
yes.
and put your 4.0 certificate up there and all the classes that you took for a full year and how you aced them all and put that on the resume and turn it in for the job. They don't care about your museums. They don't care about any other things that you wrote for the museums. Nobody cares.
No.
But nobody told me that, right? So it took me a long time of hearing no's before I got a yes.
I see.
So anybody can do it, but you have to, and everybody's much smarter now in 2026, much smarter than I was. So those types of wake-up calls should be evident, right? If you don't get a call back, there's plenty of resume writing people that we have on speed dial also that we can put you in touch with. They will help you just tweak it. And once it's perfect, you resubmit, apply to all those jobs and take the interviews because they will be coming.
Yes.
And you have to navigate the space. You have to understand that you have to be expected to do a remote interview for many of these things. So don't be stressed out. You have to understand Zoom or Teams or whatever and get comfortable talking into the camera lens. Maybe times. Yeah. Definitely dress the part, put on nice jewelry, put on a nice blazer, a nice blouse. You have to look like you want this position, right?
Yeah.
So that has changed in the industry. So, you also can't expect, although schools are still promising you a remote job once you pass the CPC. That is false. Just like you had said, the pandemic opened up the opportunity for certified coders in the hospital settings to go back home.
Yeah.
They were never allowed. They were always working in the hospital. They were never allowed to work from home ever.
No, I was going into the city 5 days a week.
I was going into MD Anderson. You had to go to work at the hospital.
Yes.
That's it. But the pandemic changed all of that, okay, for the people who are certified with years of experience. So like you had stated, you need the credential, you need the CPC, and you need to have that hands-on experience in a building, in a brick and mortar situation. You have to have that experience before the bigger organizations will trust you to work from home.
Right.
So I always tell the people who are new trying to get their certificate, that's why they chose this field so they could work from home, take care of their kids. I'm like, no.
That's what I hear. That's
Put,
not.
put your kids in daycare, have a babysitter, have grandma, have grandpa, watch the kid for a few hours while you work the whole day.
No,
Um, for a little bit of time until the organization trusts you and you can work from home with
right.
their laptop that they issue you or their entire desktop that they ship you. You
Correct.
know, we can't be working from our personal home computers dealing with medical records.
No.
That's also something that I always have to remind newer folks that
Yes.
that's a no-no.
They won't. And even as a consultant, I remember one organization, I had to use my laptop for the assessment I was doing with them, but they had to get me on their VPN.
It has to be VPN,
That's how
right?
I
There
had
are other like hula hoops that you have to jump through because your computer needs to be like safe and secure.
yes,
It has to be, yeah,
it
because
does.
transmitting those records anywhere. Yeah, you have to be on a VPN.
I
That's way
saw a
too
post.
techy though for my audience, but yeah, but
I know.
is important. Security, cybersecurity, all these things are very, very important
Oh,
in
it
the
is.
business of healthcare. Very
Correct.
important.
And you want to practice that because the social medias, the snippings of patients' charts,
Oh,
unacceptable. You
unacceptable.
want to treat someone's chart and documentation as you would want someone to treat yours. So
Absolutely.
that is like one of my pet peeves. Seeing that, unacceptable. Uh, don't let me see it. I am so nice, but don't let me see certain things. Like, no,
Seriously, you are so nice. Don't get Keisha mad. Exactly. On
no, it doesn't.
Facebook,
Right?
how many times do we see on Facebook these little excerpts of? I'm like, you can't do that.
You
Who
cannot.
posted this? You
No,
cannot do that. That's
no.
unacceptable. So those things haven't stopped. They're still all over those types of platforms, and
Exactly.
we don't want our information out there. So people should treat these things with a lot of care. But I
Exactly.
don't know.
And
Yeah,
if you leave an organization, you want to leave with your best foot forward
absolutely.
because you never know.
Great
This
point.
is a big coding world,
Mm.
but small. Everyone knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, and they can pick up their cell phones and like, hey, so and so is applying for a job. I mean, as a hiring manager prior, I can't tell you how many people came in and be like, hey, this person just came in. You want to make sure you leave with your best foot forward, because you never know when. Let's say there's another opportunity there, you want to be able to go back, um, and then they're not like blacklisting you that you can't go back there. So you want to think about that too. As you were talking about the resumes, I remembered, or even school. I saw a post the other day, and it was like, well, at least I went to school where there wasn't Chat GPT, so all my essays, like we had to really write those
We had
essays.
to really write. We had to learn how to write, craft,
Literally,
rewrite, edit,
yeah,
revise. We knew how to write. Yes.
exactly. And I think that's what helped me with writing the book. So one, I used to enter in an elementary school. I think it went down with the house, but my mom had awards that I used to get for essay writing.
Oh,
I loved to write essays, so which makes sense, right? Because I write coding articles all the time,
mhm.
and so writing the book just made sense because okay, I have a story to tell. So I think that helps. Even when we were talking about gifts and how do you pivot, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, would I think I would have been pivoting to even writing a book? But my hope was to encourage other caregivers, but also others that they also have a story to tell. And so I heard no from a lot of literary agents. And I was like, okay, well, what else? There's self publishing routes, there's other routes. And so you continue to do that until you hear that yes. So I hope that listeners, from all that we said thus far, that they have to bet on themselves. No one else is going to be your cheerleader but you.
Mhm.
You first.
You first.
And then I think the sky is the limit, but really sit down there and structure how you want things to go. Even for new and older coders, because I would just say one thing. I see that coders just sign up for courses and things because they looks good. None of us, and I know you're the same, with the certifications, we were always intentional, as you mentioned, the CPC to CPMA, about the ones that we got, because we always want to be the subject matter expert in there, not just to hold all these certifications.
Right. No.
And
Right.
so, what is your intent behind getting the next certification? What do you want to do with it? What's your goals? Where do you see yourself? That's my thoughts.
I love your thoughts. They are spot on. They are golden. They're diamonds in the rough. I'm so happy that I brought you back on.
Me too.
Because
We need like 2 more hours.
we need 2 more hours. I will bring you back, but you have a way of speaking. You have a way of getting your message across with a lot of positivity, but you also speak the truth, right? You don't shy away from, what we've called the no-nos, right? There are things that you have to avoid and be smart about, but don't put yourself down just because some interview person said no to you. No, we
Make
have
love
to
to
remain
them.
positive, right? Make
Mhm.
lemonade out of those lemons. Like
Yes.
you will find the position for you. It's meant to be. Always look at it like that organization, was not meant to have you. They
Right.
weren't meant to have you, right? It is the next organization that is going to eat you up. You're going to fit right in to
Yes.
that space, right? And you also told the audience never burn bridges. That is a key. That is a key. I stressed earlier that we're allowed to vent to our friends, to our family about our disappointment, disgruntlements at the current employment, right? That's a safe space.
Yes.
But you never want to leave an employer angry, feeling bad energy when you leave, right? Like you stressed. We always have to leave a door open for any possibilities in the future, right? Those are professionals that you worked with for some time, right? So we always have to leave with that level of respect.
Yes.
We cannot be so bitter and angry upon exit that we wish ill of them, right? We always have to leave our spaces, as harmless as possible. We never want to cause harm. We should always be able to walk back in that space, say hello to that person if we ever walk across a path and they happen to be there, right? There's so much that you and I can talk about. I know we've had experiences, that go on for decades in terms of relationships, communication, transparency, what we've seen in organizations, right? But you always want to protect that
Yes.
organization when you leave. That is integral.
Yeah.
You shared so much. It's remarkable.
I hope they were writing. Like
Maybe
we know them.
maybe we can do, I don't know, a podcast on, I don't know, writing or how to write a book or get your thoughts out on, scripting first. There's so many people who are interested in writing or developing like a play or something like that. Um,
Where do we start?
I
Yes.
know, where do we start? I think we'll
I
have to
like that.
brainstorm and plot out a roadmap for it because there's lots of things that people in our space want more information on, right? Not just the nuts and bolts of some specialty coding or some specialty in compliance, even though you and I are going to be doing a telehealth playbook 2.0 here in the spring in the next couple months because we do love our telehealth and we do love
Me
teaching about
too.
it, talking
And
about it.
it's not going away, people.
And people, it's here to stay. It's not going back in the bottle. It is here to stay. You know,
Genie in the bottle.
genie in the bottle thing, but together we will always come up with fresh new concepts together that I know you're always welcome on my podcast and we can
Thank
hash
you.
things out. But before you go, can you
Yeah.
plug your book one more time? Because I want to make sure that I leave the audience show notes with a nice link
Yeah.
for your book, and where can they purchase it? Put it up for the audience.
Hello, isn't that and that's actually my mom on there.
And that's Mom and
That
Keisha.
is my mom. Well, you would think it's me, right? But actually, I took the photo. I actually put my sister on the cover because
Your
she,
sisters.
and I talk about it, she was pregnant during that time. But we coordinated, and I wanted to kind of include her in some way. So
Beautiful.
that was, yeah, I thought that was like the perfect picture. But the name of it is By Her Side. So
By her
it's a
side.
gorgeous guide to caregiving with faith and love. And, so I talk about the caregiving journey, how it started, and I also give helpful tips for caregivers, as well as, I mean, I wouldn't be me. I'm in healthcare, right? So talk about different things like wills, trusts, healthcare
Yes.
proxies, and
Yes.
I also give resources for caregivers in the back. And then you can visit by her side at faithfulcaregiver.com. And there is blog posts, there's resources for caregivers as well, and just tips. Oh, I forgot to say one thing, but one last final thought, and we'll save it for next time for the book.
Sure. For sure.
So my mom's diagnosis was a third opinion, and she went to the doctor 3 times. Well, the third time they found it, and by the time they found it, it was stage 4. So I would just say, because we're always, every month is a different awareness month. And so I would just say, make sure you are getting checked, that if a doctor is not listening to you, that you go find another doctor until they listen. And literally before we got on this, my mom was telling me about her friend. My mom shared her story with her friend who remembered that, and she kept going to the ER complaining, and they just tried to give her constipation medication, and it wasn't that. She finally forced them to give her a CT, and they came back, and she said that doctor didn't even come back and tell her. He had another doctor come and tell her she had stage 3 ovarian cancer, and she kept going. So you have to be an advocate for yourself. And so I would just wanted to end our time together just saying, believe in yourself, trust yourself, advocate for yourself. And thank you for listening us, and thank you for having me back. I truly enjoyed sharing with all the listeners.
It's my pleasure, Keisha. I cannot wait to have you back. You've been a true joy to have.
Thank
And
you.
I will bring you back real soon, my friend.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thank
so much. Bye.